The prophet of the wall inspires the wall. Now, finally, Gaz is leading us to the top, and everybody wondered where Orks will end up. It's about time that we got our GT event win, boys. So today we're gonna go over the event wins that Orks did bring up. Also mention some honorable mentions and just talk about the players overall. So we'll start with the stats and the facts as always, because we like to know what's going on overall with our gets. Of course, stats don't mean everything, but they do matter. Just for getting an idea, GW does care. So let's get an understanding of how our gets are doing now. Now we're using Stats Hubert. This is a pretty cool website that we started using. And so let's take a look at the Orks, how they're doing. Shout out to everybody. This is live, of course. Whoa! So as for the gets, we have Orks going at 48.9% win rate. That's a 6% rise, actually, with what we were doing before. And I had been wondering, when are we going to actually, push through? Now, we're not sitting at, mid 50s or whatever, but I really wanted to see some event wins. So even though right now it says on here 1, if you go to his overall meta coverage, he does show that there's two wins. So we're going to look at both of those wins. But other than that, we should also take note that 94 players were playing War Horde. So that was something like 78% of the entire player base was playing War Horde. But there was still pretty decent representation on the other factions, detachments. So we'll still look at those guys. The Hunt, 52%, which is funny that they have like the highest win rate with the 7 players that out there. Came in out of nowhere with those guys, right? With the Hunt players. No event wins. And then the Horde, like I said, did collect both of the event wins that we looked at. Itself is sitting at 51.59% win rate. Then we have, which is, you can see, is actually in that better zone, over 50, where we would like to be as Orks, at least to look like. I think it would reflect on our overall strength and how the meta looks at us as a whole. But we have Tactical Brigade at 47% win rate. We had 10 players. Shout out to them. Still trying to figure it out. We have seen some respectable results from Tactical Brigade due to its cunning potential. Still has synergy with Gaz. The Hunt actually kind of does too, but it's always weird because it's really limited how you can build the Hunt list. But Tactical hasn't been exactly figured out yet. So it's pretty nice that people are still trying to use it, getting good results. Cult of Speed, though, is the one that I'm most proud of right now, because 46% win rate, and a lot of time people were talking about it being the sleeper faction. If Gaz hadn't gotten that glow up and some rules moved around, it seems like Orc players competitively we're going to start leaning more into Cult of Speed. So shout out to those 9 gets that are still there. I definitely find Cult of Speed to still be pretty powerful and fun. Yet we all know that right now it's all about that War Horde. That being said, Green Tide has a little bit of life back in it. 9 players with 45% win rate. Like to see that. Love my Green Tide gets. And it's funny because shout out to Morty and Glory and all the other factions that we're talking about. Mr. Nemo, who was winning, won the biggest event that we had with the Horde Astra Militarum. And a lot of times people are like, well, Horde's so powerful, yet, for the Orcs are the most powerful Horde, and knowingly throughout all 40k and a lot of the times, at least on the tabletop terms, not speaking lore wise. But GW really did a number on our Horde style detachment, similar to how they did GSC, to where it's just like, well, you could still maybe win some games, but it's going to be pretty much unrealistic to try to win events, just because the people who can win events with this don't want to put all that effort into winning events with something like this that could just go horribly wrong. Shout out to my Green Tide gets that are still doing it. I would really love to see that get some life brought back into it, though, to just be able to do a little better and be more attractive, right? We miss Hordes in the meta. Then we have the Bully Boyz, which is always the question mark. It's almost always the second most popular detachment played. Guys, look at this every weekend. And even though you hear a lot of poo-poo online about Bully Boyz, you'll see all the comments, whether it's throughout Reddits or Facebooks or Discords, either you find a couple gets that are super into it just thematically, and then you'll hear the competitive guys will say, well, there's not where it's at, might as well play War Horde. Yet there's week in and week out a bunch of representation on Bully Boyz. Yet it did not pan out this weekend for the 20%, as it's one of the lower winning rates with 43%. no event wins. And even though I do think there is potential there for certain players, and if you're someone who like go to RTT and such, whenever we're looking at all these percentages, and you're like, well, I don't go to GTs, I don't really care about all that, what's going on here. Can I win with these detachments? Absolutely. You can still totally win games. And I say at RTTs events, you know, you can go 2-on-1, maybe even 3-0 with like a Bully Boyz list if you really just take one list, refine it, play it nonstop. But a lot of times, if people are going to do that, they want to get the most out of their faction, which is why they're just going to lead more into War Horde. Doesn't mean you can't win with Bully Boyz, and you should still keep using it. So don't let that put you down. I just want to give it some context, right, guys? We're not all out there chasing GT wins, and we're not out there just casually painting a Grotz belt buckle. And then we go to the Dread Mob. So even though Dread Mob was kind of holding us up when Orks were the most down, whether it's because it was the most thematically fun to play, switch things up the most, Dread Mob now has finally fallen into what some would call trifle plays at like the worst win rate. Now, that's not because I think it's horrible. It's just it didn't get enough attention, and slowly the meta just kind of pushed by it. Now, there are gets who got to get out there and get fun. Some people still make it about the meme, so you really can't know the potential of Dread Mob until you play it in your meta and you see how good you're at running with it. Because to each their own when it comes to this one. Some gets just throw it, and some gets really are about it. Nonetheless, still proud of the Orks overall. And I think regardless of what style you're playing Orks right now, everybody has a good, you know, clean way to win games. And the fact that Orks as an army, a faction, have, you know, at least 3 to 4 healthy detachments that you can lean into is something that we can all be proud of, right? So regardless whether it's your casual, highly competitive, more likely than not, you're leaning into detachment that can still get stuck in. So there's nothing to be worried about with that. We're just getting a look at how things are going, because GW does reflect, you know, does react on what the meta and the stats overall say and reflect, right? So GW will react, therefore we keep tracking, we pay attention. That way, when it comes around time, the things happening, we know where we're sitting at, right? Orks make a lot of noise when Orks are doing good. Everybody starts looking at us. Do we need a nerf? Do the top meta players need to jump over to our faction to maintain their win paths, right? I mean, their win percentages, so they don't get trampled by the wall, right? We're in that time right now, which now that we've actually pulled through some event wins, were the gets from the meta chasing start leaning more into it, or are the same try-hard players that we know and love, such as these honorable mentions that we're going to go over, you know, really just figuring things out and honing their list? Because if you've been around Orks for a long time, you realize the gas change really just brought us back to meat and potatoes, and really just made it so that now it's a bigger piece of meat, because now we have gas on the table that really, you know, drills that win home and that wall damage. But speaking of the honorable mentions, these are the gets that did not, we're not going to cover today necessarily, but just to keep in mind for the gets who are, you know, you're coming from the rewatch gang. If we get a, you know, a healthy amount of likes on this video, you know, we'll look back and we'll maybe come back on the following week and actually start covering some of those. So if we get over 100 likes on this video, we'll come back and pick up additional third list to cover every week. So interact with that rewatch gang and all the gets. But as for these honorable mentions, still want to give a shout out to these guys because I was still proud of them. So we have Brendan Flood, which is a tactical brigade list who went 4-2 at Battle of Salvation GT. And then we have Blue Ford with Bully Boyz going 4-1 with Call to Arms. So shout out to Brandon Flood, because Tactical Brigade, like we said, always has interesting teeth as its diversity, and the enemy is typically expecting a very, as we would say, Gorkish style of play, right? Where they're just thinking of we're just gonna run right at them. And a lot of the times with Tactical Brigade players, they're coming up with some weird stuff. There's been you can't necessarily copy Tactical Brigade lists, we'll just say, right? So shout out to this guy and going 4-2, making a great showing of them. And then we have Blue Ford. Now, Blue Ford, we've actually covered him in the past. He was one of the first people to start running, you know, the real thick pain wall, where he was running high toughness models with feel no pain, such like that. So really experienced Ork player right here. Like I said, if you are running one of the, you know, non-War Horde detachments, if you simply just play it often and you're really familiar with it in your meta and you make the adjustments, you can still get great results with it. So shout out to Blue Ford, as always, get you cunning lad. So let's look at chats real quick. Shout out to Richard Kilton. Whoa! So he was actually one of the winners that we're gonna cover. Hopefully I do this get well, because we didn't get any notes this time, but next time. And yeah, as people are saying right now, shout out to you. Thank you for being here, by the way. And then we have the rest of the chat. What's up, Miss Taxes? Whoa, with all the gets. And like people are saying, we're enjoying Bully Boyz if you're a casual player. As it's I have no problem with that, dude. I've enjoyed a lot of my games with Bully Boyz, and there's plenty of times where you're just trying to get that aggression on. And Bully Boyz just go, I don't really got time this one necessarily perfectly. You know what's happening in this game. You and I know what's happening when I have two walls in my back pocket. I'm essentially throwing hooks all game. So let us know in the comments what you think, what list you want us to cover, and let's take a look at today's sponsor, the Tactical Baron of Dice. So take a high quality dice. Thank you for the Baron of Dice for allowing us to do our paint competitions. If you want to help out the channel, check them out in the description, 5% off because no one likes taxes. And we're getting rid of our merch shop for now. So if you want to hook it up, beyond that, but other than that, just let it be known. So let's take a look at the first get that we're going to cover. First 5-0 get, we're going to have Peter Herbild. I don't want to mess up your name. Sorry, you get at the Hydra GT3. So let's take a look at what he's doing, right? Let's take a look at what tools, what big gets this guy got on his list. So we have the Big Mac. Big Mac was the most frowned upon character from when he first came out because of his unique confusion where he wants to buff shooting and melee, yet he's finally found his place. Who would have known that the one person he needed was Gaz and 20 boys along his side? We didn't see that coming. So but now that we got Gaz thrown in there, boys, everybody was like, well, perfect. His data sheet ability to move through people and re-roll advances is absolutely invaluable now when you got Gaz plus follow me, lads. Of course, this unit is going to be on the table. You're not going to intentionally cut the unit to fit it inside of a battle wagon, and it needs to be on the table to have access to here we go, right? So people forget that a lot of the time when they look at a list. Just whenever you see that, you just know that, right? Just keep that as a mental note. Sorry. Then we have an additional Big Mac. And remember, both of these Big Macs have Drillas and Mega Blastus. So a lot of people like to know that. I personally like Drillas as well, so nothing wrong with that. Then we have another Gazgul, followed by a War Boss, and then another War Boss. So we're actually going for 2 of these mobile moving through screen mobs. Absolutely first time I've seen this. And to be honest, first time we've really even been taken into consideration in most people's minds right now. Even if you're watching this, people were not considering taking double Big Mac bricks and the Gaz and one with the War Boss and just saying, I'm going to full send them all and run right through whatever you got best I can. You're not going to screen all of this. You get that's pretty wild. When I first seen that, kind of blew me back. Like, if someone would have told me that, the first thing we would all start saying is, well, you simply can't stack the movement capability from that. So is it really worth it? I guess he proved us that it is. So then we move to the second War Boss. He's going to be going with the Breaker Boys most likely. So then we have 2 big 20-man units of boys, like I said, with the characters that were aforementioned. 1 truck, followed by 2 battle wagons, both with Ard case. Then we have a Breaker Boy unit, followed by a Burner Boy unit, 2 10-man units of flash kits, 2 trucks, and then 1 unit of Mandos, which we all absolutely love. Commandos. Mandos lead the way, baby. And it's really nice because how they split up in 2. Remember, their war gear goes wherever you decide, including their special war gear, which is their ammo runt and the bomb squig. So put all your nice stuff on the 1 5-man unit, and then put all your wasteful gets in the other, and let those gets get stuck in early, which means get deleted. So how this ends up working out a lot of the time in the transport is you're going to take 1 unit of flash kits and put it in 1 truck. You're going to take the battle wagon, most likely put 1 mob inside of 1, and then put a 10-man unit of flash kits, plus a Burner Boy and a Breaker Boy unit, plus the War Boss. and all of that would fill out to 22. So you have what we like to call a blitzel wagon. Everybody's familiar with SWAT teams with trucks, right? Where you fill up one truck with multiple transport units. Now Orks are running these blitzel wagons where they're actually just taking killer units, putting in the middle of the field and just dropping nukes on people with these double big bricks spilling out of wagons. Now, that doesn't mean they necessarily always stage right in the middle. They could kind of stage on the peripherals because you do have Gaz right in the middle on this list all the time, taking center building because you're looking to pop Here We Go for him. And Makari's aura needs to go that way. But as it entails is how the opposing player looks at it is it goes from just a couple of transports and some mobs moving around to simply there's 50 bodies on the field all simultaneously at once on top of the 25 that there already were from the one Gaz mob. So it gets overwhelming quick, which is what people kind of tend to overlook when they're playing War Horde as well. It's not just about killing people and breaking their back on the WAAAGH. When we say break their back, it doesn't mean that you're just automatically won the game on that turn necessarily. It a lot of the time means that you hurt them enough so that they can't take you off the table quick enough for them to come back, and that's why Orks are more of the attrition game than simply I table you game. So it was really interesting to see the double Big Macs here because that means him delivering these mobs, which is the most important part. If you ever play Mobs Boys, right? On the WAAAGH, you have to make contact with both of these mobs. Very, very rarely in situationally have I seen a player be able to execute by having mobs and then Gaz knots to get stuck in and using Gaz more as a follow-up. In this style of list, both of these mobs are making contact with something. That's really why you also have these flash kits. These flash kits are getting early effective trades, right? For 160 points, the enemy is going to commit something that's worth getting WAAAGHs called into them. And on that go turn, the second 20-man unit is going to enjoy the Inbone, enjoying Gaz's aura, and then you have that one unit that's doing 2 phases of sustain lethal, which is straight volume. And that gets overwhelming. Absolutely love it. So yeah, and now let's take a look at his path to victory. Always important. People like to know what context did he get to play. If you have more questions, of course, let me know in the chat and how else I can let people know about how I think that list works or breaks down. But you guys let me know, right? How many of you guys in your local chats with fellow orc players, I'm lurking around the home community. Do you see people really considering double mechs? So really impressed right here with Peter just to get into it. So happy that people can just say, I'm just going to go all in and just be fast and mobile. Pretty hilarious. Now let's take a look at this first list. We have Necrons, Hypercrypt Legion. So we have Kilton, Shard of the Deceiver, Shard the Nightbringer, Orican, the Diviner, Technomancer, followed by a 20-man unit of 20-man unit of warriors, double flayed ones, 2 locusts, 1 break of wraith, Doomsday Arc, and a monolith. Did score a fat 97-point win, which is his highest scoring game. Find it very hard for this to really you would think it could contest with 20 Necron warriors, but Necrons have a bad habit of this is their style of I'm just going to try to stat check you or try to bait enough of your army with this one wraith brick that when you clap back on this wraith brick, you don't have enough after I kill you when you've committed to this wraith brick because it's going to take way more than the points it's worth based off how durable it is. In the Orks style of play is like I always like to encourage intermediate players or new players is you fail forward as an orc player. If I do fail to kill this Necron list or these Necron units, which Orks actually have great profiles into, so a lot of time you're actually going to be able to blitz through them with Gaz. But let's say I do fail. The idea is I have a ton of bodies, OC. You're not going to have enough activations and volume. You can get a little iffy if you try to full check the monolith and if these wraiths are state somehow full potential because they do fight respectively. I'm not, you don't have the pain boy, so you do have to deliver damage. But when he has double flash kits, the fillet, the breaker boys, and Gaz plus the 20, and it starts getting really, really effective at killing just about anything on here, right? And the lethal is what's very important versus these shards. But if shards aren't fighting on objectives and they're just fighting outside and just standing in no man's land while you're holding the primary. This ends up really putting Necrons in the back foot, makes them, commit even more. And at that point, they're dealing on the trades. You're fighting on death. You're hard against nails. It feels absolutely great. Love that list to that style of Necrons. And I'm not sure if he could back with that warrior brick, which is very common where they just didn't fall back and they're like, oops. And he's trying to be hyper crypty up. Not really that likely. Then we go to his second matchup, which was the Dark Angels, which was Gladius Task Force. So not the new rock stuff, but hey, it's still a very effective detachment. So we have Azrael, then Lieutenant with combi weapon, followed by Lionel. Very clean, neat on the characters, which I personally like to see if I was a Space Marine cap player. Lieutenant, he's pretty nice, but that means they get more stuff. But let's see what else he got. Assault Intercessors, Assault Jump Packs, 3 units of Deathwing Knights. That's why you get so lean in the characters, right? That's why, because you need more of the Deathwing Knights. That's how you get more. Triple Land Speeder Vengeance. I'm going to make sure I just look this up right now because I already know what that thing does. Space Marine data sheets. I forgot whose video I was watching. Where they were like, with Space Marines have like 80 detachments or data sheets. I'm like, oh god, yeah. No wonder I don't remember everything. I'm gonna look it up anyways for the chat. So opponent shooting phase. Destroying. Actually, I should just throw on field on the screen. Why am I looking at it on the side? Sorry, guys. All right, can you see? I'm zooming. Okay, it's good to see you too. Moves 14, TA, 3 wounds, 5 up invuln, 10 wounds. I said 3 up save, 5 invuln, 10 wounds. 6 of leadership, 3 OC. Did this guy have the assault cannon on his? I'm gonna look. Oh, sorry, Necron list. They were all plasma storm and heavy bolters. Okay, makes sense. So he could either be D6 plus 1, 8 minus 2, 2, or D6 plus 1, 9 minus 3, 3. Pretty cool. Twin linked. Okay, so those are pretty effective in solid boys. Dismount ability. Okay, so pretty much when you shoot, if you shoot within 6, when friendly adept as a starter units within 6 of this model is destroyed, this model can use the ability where it shoots back. So if you destroy a unit near it, this unit ends up shooting back at you. So you have 3 of those. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty effective into orcs too. Now, do we typically have guns? No, but this would that would be a good profile into a Tim unit of flash gets. So ideally you're like, okay, flash gets, get out, pop ammo, lethal run, and you shoot, and then they're like, okay, whatever dude shoots back and actually can kind of pick up your flash kit. So that's pretty intimidating, and you still have to do it though, right? That's what I'm saying. As an orc player, still make the right choices because the flash kits are leading the way and pushing through, so you can actually get into the contact targets that you want to and get past those screens, or just picking up like their stupid, scoring units, their chaff, early game. So that's still not going to deter you. In fact, you hope you can just shoot the land speeder itself and kill it. Then we go into the scout squad, 2 of them. So and he doesn't have a ton of units that are looking to get destroyed and then for you to shoot back anyway. So you're just taking that all day and then trying to kill us. But nice little units to have around the field for 120 points. Nonetheless, we've done the math, of course, on it. That Gaz does break the back of the Deathwing Knight. Now, this game is not easy because Lionel Johnson himself can go off, right? Lionel Johnson himself can end up just cutting through all the boys. But orcs, because of our fight on death, art as nails, and this becomes an OC game. This becomes like I said, you make contact on your terms. Now you need your mandos, right? This is where we always talk about mandos. When people say, well, then how would I interact with this? It's about just not letting them come in as not that easy, right? But that's why you need mandos, infiltration of some sort. You need to be able to push these guys further back, or once they do just full commit, say they walk it onto the table, there's no teleport and deep striking in, then it's all about making contact and killing both of these Deathwing Knight units on their turn. When it comes to Lionel Johnson, you can end up using your trash to charge him to stop him from getting in heroics. This isn't the Wrath of the Rock, so this guy's not additionally tough, and they're not going to get additional charges that are acting as heroics, which would be problematic, ish if you're going back into this. But nonetheless, I still think that Just the amount of damage you get can still break the back of this list, and it typically does. And even if you don't kill everything, you end up just running away with the score, which is what it looks like here. Right? He couldn't just run away to break 90, but he did run away to end up just offsetting and winning the game. So shout out to them. That was a pretty good list to come over, because those can be intimidating for most orc players when they're not used to that. Bunch of knights and fight first to prime mark and such. Then we go into this game, which is the Emperor's Children. So we have double Demon Prince Slanesh with wings. One of these dudes gets back up. I know that. I can look up the rest, but triple Lord Exalted. So you can kind of look at them like a Orc War Boss, or if you're familiar with a Chaos Lord, where they get one turn of go turn where they get additional attacks and they get to go full throttle and fight you better. And then Lucius the Eternal. Triple Infractor. So those are like the units, from what I understand. Or is it Torments? No, it is. You get the Infractors, I think, are the guys they get stuck to. So like little missling fighting guys. And then double Tormentors, double Rhinos, Mauler Fiend, followed by triple Noise Marine squads. So though I do have respect overall for what they could do in this match, in an orc matchup sometimes, because they do have like a cool, hey, if while I'm dying, I'm getting better at killing you. Their profiles are relatively effective into us. They can advance, shoot, and charge, take advantage of us with some speed, like initiative on us. And they like to play the transport game, but they simply run out of gas. They run out of juice when you're playing War Horde. You're managing your CP enough, and you're baiting the right, interactions, and they're all really susceptible to dying to all our profiles. So 95-point win there. I do think it's a respectable army, but once you start getting used to it, maybe the first time you play it or two, you're not familiar with it, they can kind of catch you off guard, put you on the back foot. Orcs don't really like that, but once you understand how they operate, it's not very favorable, but favorable with this kind of matchup, because he's fast too, right? Our orc lives pretty fast at this Big Mac as well. So we're moving into his fourth matchup with which was Astra Militarum, which is what I think these double Big Macs would be pretty sick. So we have Ursula Creed as the Warlord, 1 Cadian Command Squad, 2 Rogodoran Commanders, and then a Tech Priest Engineer. Double Cadian, 1 Cadian Shock Troop, 1 Catachan unit, triple Kazarkin, 1 Krieg Engineer, 1 Tempestus Aquilon, double Adelan Rough Riders, Lehman Russ, and then double Toroxes. Favorable for us in infiltration. They do have scouting with these Kazarkin and such, but that's where you like having double Mandos, splitting them back, taking that space up. You don't want the guard to just sit in the firing lanes as you're staging. It's not that they reliably pop all your battle wagons, but the more tanks that get lined up obviously put you offset, right? So one thing that I think players aren't really used to with when you're playing with orcs as well as the Mandos is just standing in the firing lanes, pre-measuring the enemy where they can even end up, filling up that firing lane so they can't run out and even shoot at your wagons in that case if you do end up going first in this. Not a lot of screens going on in this matchup either. And sometimes orc players will overestimate it on, I have to go all out and kill the tanks effectively. It's usually kill, a couple of the tanks. And once you start killing all his scoring, not letting him bring in his reserve, these Adelans, if somehow he wants to bring them back to life, for example, you want to keep them past that 50-way marker, right? Now, it seems like you would think this way as an orc, that they want to win just like you, as in I'll trade my body for points. The armies that do this very consistently, just like us, would be Tau, Tyranids, and Astra Militarum. So these are the armies where aggressive play is beneficiary to you. The more you sit back because you're scared to lose assets, means that they take ground, they start taking your assets, they're trading their bodies for points. So it's really best you get in there, start picking all these fights early, making the charges and making sure you're ending up on objectives, right? I know that's just funny. Sometimes I get so worried about killing that I will not charge. I'll charge stuff and not end up on primary, right? And Guard's one of those armies where you can't make that mistake because they do have respectable OC. And you can see he had an 82-point win there. So They have a lot of small arms fire for you. They'll pull mortal wounds, good synergizing with their orders, ability to improve their primary. They do have ability to knock it back on the score, which is you can see here, because they will trade all their bodies for that. So great job there, right? It's not about Gaz doesn't have anything that he needs to completely annihilate on this list like a great unclean one, right? He's not going to get his playing cost for killing, so make sure he does for where he's staging up. Then we go on to his last matchup, which was Space Marines Black Templars, which Black Templars are getting a lot of love right now. They're making a big comeback. So triple Castellan, look crazy cheap that is. That's crazy cheap. 60 points. Outrageous. One Chaplain Grimaldus, one Emperor's Champion with Honor Virament, Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, and then double Marshal. So pretty cheap characters, but it's a lot of characters. So using a lot of missiles here on this list. 3 units of Assault Intercessors. One of them is a big 10-man unit, a basic Intercessor squad, one basic Impulsor, 2 Repulsor Executioners, triple Sword Brethren, and then 1 Caladius Assassin. Very important for CP management, as we would know here, because we're trying to fight on death the most with all of this. Now, because he's only have this one transport as a dedicated transport, it doesn't mean he's not using obviously these repulsors as holding these little missile sword brethren squads. Of course, there's the option of I will entrap these transports and not allow these guys to disembark and just blow them up. But a repulsor isn't the same thing as like wrapping a rhino, where he's just going to keep laying on the onslaught heavy Gatling cannons on you and such. But typically, this is a mission, and who ends up going first. One thing we're happy to see here as an Orc player is no infiltrators again, which means we're taking up the space, which means a lot of the time the Orc players then ending up able to kind of set the pace on what trades are happening, who's coming out first, right? If you expose your 10 flash kits, hey, 10 flash kits, here I go. They're going to jump out the truck first and stand around the mid table. What you're going to come get me? Well, you're just going to kind of expose tanks on the line. Well, to get those tanks on the line, you're first get past those Mandos. Well, to get past those Mandos, you're going to have to move up and shoot them away maybe, and Orcs are going to stage up, not get all the guns to pop the wagons. Wagons are going to be safe. And then as they move up to pick their staging spots, Big Macs jump out, run through whatever garbage screens they have, boom, boom, start making contact, knocking people's teeth out, fighting on death, getting stuck in. Big proper scrap. But Peter pulled out on top there with a 92-point win. Nice to see when 2 melee armies end up making the scrap to the end for the big bang. So we have these guys banging it out. He collected his teeth with the Peter Hilbert. So double Big Macs, both with the drillers and custom Mega Blasters. Love to see the double Big Mac. Very uncommon. Gaz, pretty much unheard of until this point. So Peter leading the way. Let's go. Gaz Gothraka, double War Bosses, 20 boys, 1 truck, double wagons with RKs. They had like cannons and such if you want to know about their weapons. I like Zap guns just because it's faster. 1 breakable unit with the War Boss, double 10-man flash kits, 2 trucks, and then the Mandos. Of course, we had the Blitzwagen fold up. One of the wagons had 20 boys, and then Gaz just sitting right there, primed and ready in the mid-table. So shout out to Peter Hilbert. Whoa, for the Orcs finally winning a GT and getting stuck in. Do you think it gets in the trucks are not able to double in a wagon? Would people double up the flash kits into a wagon? Not typically. How the list kind of looks and works out. You could maybe match up this, you decide to just make that match choice and you take a Breaker Boy squad and a Burner Boy and you throw them into a SWAT team. That's the cool thing about the style list and how it's built out, though. The way you're thinking is I can diversify what I'm putting in trucks based off the matchup, and we like to see that. That just shows the strength of a list when you can do that. So shout out to this kid. And then we move on to Richard Kilton. And then we have YouTube member Sasha. Whoa, thank you very much. You were here before the stream started. Sorry, I just noticed that, but that's pretty cool picture you got going on there. Thank you for supporting the Great Wall. It means a lot. Very humbling, and welcome to the Great Wall. Sorry about that, guys. I should have noticed that earlier, but my gate was here nice and early. So as for Richard Kilton, Richard's actually in chat. I don't know if he's still here right now, but he was actually in chat earlier. So shout out to that kid. So thank you very much. And we have his War Horde list. So he ended up going 5-0 as well at the Ork. I said Ork. The October GT. So with his 5-0 War Horde list. Now we do have his path to victory as well, which we'll go over. But we have starting off the Beast Boss. Beast Boss can't be left at home sometimes. You guys let me know, how often is the Beast Boss still hunting up on your list? With everything happening, there's a ton of Orc players that are playing War Horde. Are you guys cutting your Beast Boss, or all of you absolutely finding your way to find at least one on there? I guess I'm one of those gets that at least I'm playing War Horde, I find a way to get one on there. But that's just me. You guys let me know. I might do a live poll for this just for my own fun. Then we have, but we also, what we have on it is Cunning but Brutal, which I actually do like if you got the points for it. If you got like points for it, I feel like Cunning but Brutal is one of the most slept on enhancements, especially when you start going for these lists that have mobs. Then it's like, you target priority becomes an issue here. How are you gonna kill all of this? Let me fall back and hit you again, huh? So then we have the Big Mac. Instead of having the Drilla, he had the custom Mega Blaster and the Power Claw. Here we have Follow Me, lads. For the +2 stacking with Here We Go. Very common right now with what's going on in the meta, but it's so useful to be able to stack that mobility, rerolling the charges so your unit on average is moving 14 inches, running through those guys and screens, and the Big Mac brings decent fighting profiles. If you fall back, you don't have to take battle shocks. It's pretty fun if guys are still alive during the WAAAGH. We have a Big Mac with shock attack on. I'll be honest. Hey, Richard's here. He said I'm here. Hold on, let me pull up his stuff. What's up, you get? Whoa! I'll be honest, man. Right, man. Boss to boss here. I was surprised to see the Big Mac with shock attack on. Whenever we're talking about it, it's do we bring the DACA? Do I pay for the character? So you let us know in the chat how you felt about him after running him through this event. But I was pretty surprised that you had the Big Mac with shock attack on your list, if we're being honest here. Because people are always wondering, well, he's not really necessarily reliable. And as we look at the rest of the list, it's like, I'm not even sure. Does he go with Burner Boys? I don't think he can even go with Burner Boys. Let me just pull that up. This was surprising me though. Pretty wild list right there with that stuff, right? But you let us know what you think with that. I want to know. He can only be led by a Pain Boy. Yeah, that's what I thought. So the Burner Boy can't even be, a part of his combo. So it looks like he was just standing by himself. Big Mac shock attack. You let me know, Richard, you're here. Then we have Boss Snickrat for his cheap cost of 75 points. I wouldn't even say the cheap. That's right. I'm not gonna start saying it's cheap because people are gonna think we're overpowered. That's the right cost for Boss Snickrat on our loan out kit. Love to see him. We want more infiltration stuff because it's a whole phase of the game of movement that you get to play extra. That if you don't participate in, the enemy gets to choose where you can stand and where you're going to end up and where your reserves come in and the tempo of the game. So absolutely love even if you're paying for the more of that stuff. Then we go to a Death Killer War Trike with Super Cyborg Body. Now this, Richard, okay, I'm not for the Big Mac with shock attack gun. Just saying, I mean, love you. You're the 5-0 again. I'm here right now, right? So let me get that out of the way. But absolutely love the Death Killer War Trike with Super Cyborg Body. That is some index hammer, big brain stuff right there, right? He's coming in at T6, 9 wounds, built-in 5-up invuln, 4-up, feel no pain. I can advance auto 6, so he's a big stupid base. He can get where he needs to get. I don't necessarily run him the most competitively anymore right now, but I've had games where he's on my list and I still like him. He still feels solid. Art his nails. He can just be flipping enemies at primary. Natural expansion, right? People will put some little trash unit like a Marine scout unit on there. He runs up, he kills a couple of them, he just tags it because he has 3 OC, which is very nice. That's one more than most basic transports, like an Ork truck, for example. So he can just turn off primary and touch stuff that doesn't want to be touched. It just gets fun. People ignore him sometimes, and it's wall time, and he gets out there and starts tagging things. Not respectably to kill a whole unit, but you can kill a model or 2, whatever. His power claw attacks. And enemies don't want to kill him. They don't feel like dealing with him. Then we have a Gazgul Hraka finding his way on the list again with a with he's gonna have, of course, the Big Mac attached to him. Then we have a War Boss, just basic War Boss sticking around here. He's gonna go with those 5 knobs, which I love to see that. It feels like people always want to have that in their back pocket, right? It's almost like say you're going to battle and you have your halberd or you have your big battle axe and your shield, you have all your stuff, but you're never not gonna have your sword. That's almost like how I feel like your orcs, your knobs with your war bosses, right? It's like you just need that one tool that's specifically for that one job when you gotta get stuck in. Need that AP, need that small unit to get in there. And I respect it whenever you bring one of those on the War Horde list. Then we have Zagra Wartsnagger. So this is right here. This is where we're at right here, dude. I'm loving it. This guy's been playing since Index for sure. Now you don't have to play Zod, right? Zod's pretty cool, but if you're gonna pay for another mob of 20 dudes, instead of paying for a big expensive, amount of gits and boys and character stacking and stuff like that for 2 of these big missiles, you just pay for Zod. Zod doesn't need a transport, very fast. You're now having both units that are minimum moving about 14 inches, and he doesn't have to kill stuff, but he does turn off the enemy, and he kills just enough. So I like Zod in here. He's always one of the things I'm considering. Do I put him on the list or not? Some of the War Horde lists I have 20 boys, some have Zod and 20 boys. So I really like that kind of shift. And this is looking like a more tar pity list. Now, of course, you can still kill. But certain matchups, it's like, well, how much do I really need to kill you? You might be playing a trash style list too. Maybe yours, another kind of attrition army. How much is about killing and how much is about just having tools, tar pitting you, being fast. And this is kind of what it looks like our boy Richard was going more into. So I like that little flavor on there. And then as for he responded, actually, thanks for that gift for him being here. He said the Big Mac with shock attack gun was trash. Thank you for admitting that, and I appreciate you letting us know that, because there's some hopeful get out there that right now is on their phone. They're about to be putting like, yeah, well, I told you I like that Big Mac. And it's okay if you do, because he's pretty cool, but I don't think it goes in War Horde personally. And then he said the Death Kill Award trike was amazing. Wasn't killing anything, but was amazing. That's how I feel about him too, right? That the enemy never wants to kill them. So you heard it from the Git's mouth himself, the boss's mouth himself. Or I guess you read it. Then you hear he had 10 Beast Snagga boys, of course, for the Beast boss. 20 boys for Gaz. 10 boys. We just love the boys. Personally, just 10 million boys. Like, you've seen the tier list video, haven't seen it. You know what I like. I like them. Sticky bodies, stuff, transports, trucks, fun. 3 trucks. So not going for a bunch of wagons in this case, going back to the trucks to be fitting out these SWAT teams. You can have one's a snagger truck, one's a boy truck, and then you can have a SWAT team truck if not. So I like the flexibility on multi trucks. 3 is about where I'm at. When you go past 3, it's kind of like you're not really gonna hide any anymore, to be honest. That's my opinion, at least not in GW. Excuse me, GW to be specific. And then we have 1 burner boy, which is I'm always back and forth about the burner boys. Now I hear a lot of the time from the Gits when I start talking to them, why do you have the burner boys? Because you're just seeing them more and more on lists, just 5 appearing here and there. Typically, it's for the Eldar matchup. People are just like, I just want to have a flamer for the Eldar matchup, maybe the Tau matchup, stuff like that. But it seems to be very specific for the Eldar matchup and maybe the Tyranids matchup where you're bringing flamers. So that's where the burner boys seem to be coming into play. Sometimes as a tech piece, sometimes as the point piece. Then the points piece. Sorry, excuse me. Then we have 2 5-man units of flash kits rounding it out. Each one of them, more activations, more stuff, requiring the enemy to take more activations. I can't tell you how many times just 5 flash kits are just the enemy's like, I don't really have stuff to kill those guys right now. I have to hope they just whiff. Or I'm going to overcommit into those guys, and then now you're going to just crumb me. So love my flash kits. 1 big brick of Gretchen for Zod. As he said, he likes them, and he has more words to say about the God Zod brick. He said, played Zod very conservatively and saved him for the wall turn. Just like Gaz, right? Like I said, in my opinion, right, as I run through with this style, if I run it, the Zod unit acts similar to us, even if I just had 20 boys. It's just I'm holding them for the WAAAGH, and then they're both making contact just like my normal thing. I'm just paying a lot less for what I'm doing here, and it's not killing nearly as much, and maybe it's not as durable, of course, but Still durable enough, kill you enough, and it's still fast enough to make contact. And yeah, but now you're playing conservative, 2 big mobs that are kind of the open. So there is that to be considered too, Gits, right? Can I stage up with both of these things and not let them get picked apart or the enemy take initiative from me? 2 little minimum sized units of Gretchen just for more stuff. Then you have the Mandos. Mandos are splitting up too, so then just more stuff. So you have boys, you have 3 Chucks, you have 2 5 Flash Gits, you have Burner Boys, you have Death Killer War Trike, Snick Rock, a random shock attack, random shock attack gun. 2 Gretchen. So you can see, though he has these expensive gas brick, he surrounded everything else around him with just stuff. Just a bunch of kind of like activations, a little bit of the trash bash going on here. So I really like to see it. And then the 5 knobs, as we spoke of. So, of course, he has more to say here that he's letting us know. But let's take a look. And thanks you for that, Richard. And we're going to take a look at his actual path to... Oops, I don't know why I had the wrong Git right there. Sorry. Thank you, Richard, for the path to victory. Let me cut some of these other things out. Boom. All right. Oh, yeah. But I'm very feeling your list right now. You get... Yeah, I had your list up right here because I was like, this kid did not have any. Because sometimes, you know, I fat finger in my edit and I lose something, and I was like, did I lose like 10 busters or something? But no, the Burner Boys were the shock attack was an intentional choice. So let's take a look at his first game and his path to a victory. So it was Adeptus Custodes with the shield host. So we have Trajan Valores, Blade Champion, Shield Captain, 2 units of Guardians, 1 unit of Wardens, 2 Prosecutors, 2 Venataris, a Witchseeker, and then double have Telemon heavy Dreadnoughts. I know that the first, I can't help it, guys. I know you guys are too. I would not be like, man, I'm trying to get my guys into the Telemon. Now, I'm not saying he would let it happen because this guy was running, he was running the accelerator Culverin and the twin plasma projector. So this guy, I don't know if he has the punching palm right there too. So he's 1 arm, 1 shooting. Maybe you couldn't get a suck into him. And I know I would be loving to get into that. But there's a chance you just end up putting guys into Warden though. They do have their 1s per phase for the feel no pains. Whenever I look at this matchup and I try to get too creative on it, I just end up, it just ends up kind of devolving into like a slugfest in the middle of the table. In this case though, you know, our boy Richard does have more trash, therefore he can, you know, act more cagey with like multi-charging units so that a certain amount of models can't fight, splitting their attacks, taking them over with secondaries on activations, not necessarily going toe-to-toe with him, but because he has so much stuff, right, pushing back these Venatari if they're doing their double ingress, right, because they get ingress. So one of them free ingresses, another one free ingresses, and then if you have something in reserve, that thing can ingress for 1 CP. So it could just overwhelm me with board control. But as we've seen with Richard's list, he was able to have that board control and kind of maintain that with all these units and activations. So 62.1, so not necessarily the highest scoring. Don't know what the mission was in that case, but he did end up overcoming it with the Custodes, which is just, hey, we're getting stuck in, playing for the mission, killing you for points as much as I can. But but maintaining my point score. So love that. Orks and Custodes have just like a rivalry here. Then we go into his second matchup, which was into the Eldari. Now he does have a little things he's saying here in chat about the Eldari. But we'll talk about the Eldar real quick. We have Eldar War Horde, we have Uhtred, Fugin, Genzar, Slilax, and Magid Ra. 1 unit of Storm Guardians, 1 Wave Serpent, 1 Dark Reaper, 1 Falcon, a big brick of Fire Dragons, 1 Howling Banshee, small unit, that's important, 5 Rangers, 1 unit of Striking Scorpions, 3 units of minimum-sized Whooping Hawks, triple Warp Spider bricks. Very annoying Warp Spiders in this case. But as we were going through the list and we were talking about Rich's list, one thing that he did say here in chat is the boys plus the Burner Boys were very important into this matchup, like we speak about for effective trades and volume of punches and board control, OC, you know, mix of those things. Having that on your list is what's important. So he had the Burner Boys, he had the boys on this list, but also he said his fight on death was ultimately very important. Now, when Orks are being pulled away and killed, slowly and dwindled and picked apart by Eldar. If they're move blocking you, choosing the engagements, things can go horribly wrong. But if you're playing that slow game with them, so the mission can be very, very important when you're playing into Eldar to try to get context for it. 55-point win, so it was one of his lower scoring wins there, but he did say that ultimately his fighting on death, his having small fast units and taking board space was very important, and he was able to hold on to that W there. I personally love Zod in that matchup, but he does have the thing of, now I have two of these big mobs kind of in the open, which then gives you that kind of like, well, I'm a little bit in trouble here. Yeah, you have your infiltration and such, so very interesting how the Eldar game is working, meta game is working now compared to how it was before. I would always feel very like I could just hyperly aggressive run into them. I think because they were trying to hold, mid-table with like avatars and such, so Orks could kind of like lily pad off that, right? Charge you, get through you. Now I'm halfway up the field with more movement. In this case, they just have little dumb stuff that gets right in front of you, shoots you, gets in your way, disembarks you, or just move blocks you, and then rinses, repeats it. So that's more, I guess it's more Eldar in like the bad way, right? It's more scrawny. So then we go into his third matchup, which is the Gladius Task Force Space Wolf. So it's WAAAGH, followed by Lieutenant Combi Weapon, Lorgan, Grimnar, Ragnar, and then Wolfguard Battle Leader. Sorry, guys. I've always done that since I started 40K, so it's just stuck in me now. One unit of Blood Calls, an Intercessor, one unit of Jetpack, triple Ballista Dreadnoughts, one Land Raider Redeemer, one Wolfguard Head Taker, two 5-man units of Wolfguard Terminators, and then a Wolfen. Again, as Richard had said, that the fighting on death was very important in this. He doesn't have he doesn't have Bjorn, so you're not getting at least the expensive taxation on your fight on death, so it's pretty nice. More guns than you would typically expect, and then he has the Flamestorm cannon, so it's surprising Overwatch in that case. But I like the amount of units you have, Richard has here. The style of list, because he doesn't have stuff for trading and anything that he whiffs on, just killing like a Death Killer Wartrike. Then he's just kind of set up for giving you good points back on your return. And the ballistas did go up in point. Now the Gladius is still pretty freaking solid, of course, version of ballistas, because they have access to upgrading them in their shooting. So with like a mixture of tech and such. And the Wolfguard Terminators do have typically 4 wounds, an interversion of 4 wounds. So pretty nice, just no leader unit sometimes. In this case, he did have WAAAGH and Logan, so he could stick them with that. And so, yeah, but what the one thing that he was saying, Richard was saying, was the fighting on death was absolutely huge here. That helped him a lot in this matchup, as it typically is when you're going into a Space Wolf list. But he ended up having to face a very similar list twice, because as his 4th matchup, again, he went into Space Wolves. But this time it was Saga of the Beast Slayer. So we have WAAAGH's Rockfist, Bjorn the Fell-Handed, an Iron Priest, a Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, Logan Grimnar, and then Ragnar Blackmane, an Intercessor Squad, double Lancers, a Scout Squad, a big unit of Thunderwolf Cavalry, 2 small units of Thunderwolf Cavalry, a Head Taker, double Terminators. Oof, another good, fun, scrappy matchup here. Less volume of shooting, more of like anti-tank, so not necessarily more valuable in this case. As for both those games, he came out on top with his higher scoring wins. I think based on how those units work out and the profiles he had just enough of multi-activations and durability and units to draw out their assets and then get good trades on them. So here, Artist Nails fighting on death goes far and goes long. So I like that. Very nice W wins on there, taking out the Space Wolves. We had a good rivalry with them in 8th edition, Saga of the Beast. Oh, Logan makes it expensive now. Thank you. So I was wrong. Thank you. So Logan does. Oh, they changed that. Ooh. Oh no. Let me see. So you still have to be where you Bjorn. So Bjorn, he had it here anyways on the second list, but he also had Logan. Yeah, Logan does it. Yeah, so they changed Logan Grimnar on the sleigh. He's not on the sleigh though, right? There's the Terminator version, 110 points. So he still does actually have to pay for that. Ooh, so even more on your P's and Q's on that. But still, nonetheless, he said he had to pay for those CP and had to do it. So absolutely love to see it. Respect to like the head takers and the terminators and stuff. I like what Space Wolves are working with. And it does come down to, if you're playing the melee army, you know, I take a chunk out of you, you respond, then I hit you back and I break your back, and then hopefully whatever you got left can't shoot through me fast enough. That's where your fighting on death comes through and pulls through, and just gas starts tearing through those 4 wound terminators. At least that's what I would hope to see in like every matchup. So great job on that. Then we move into his final matchup, where he was saying it was the Ducati with Sky Splinter Assault. So we have the Archon with Night Shroud, a double Beast Masters. Oh, that's tedious. Slilax, and then a Uriel Rakarth, 1 Cabalite Warrior, 1 Rack, 1 Unit of Witches, double Raiders, double Venoms, 1 Court of the Archon, a Chronos, double Grotesque, double Mandrakes, double Scourges, and a Void Raven Bomber. So fun to actually see the Void Raven Bomber. It's like the only realistic fly that can be played in 40k because of its, you know, interesting movement rules and such. As for this list, how it kind of works out, very happy to have Mandos, I bet. Weren't you happy to have Mandos on this list, Richard? You know, as we see here, because this, if you haven't played into them, Beastmasters are pretty annoying. They get to scout and they're also fast. So if you're not able to jam this up, these guys will completely jam you up in your deployment zone and really just make the matchup very annoying right off the bat. And I just want to point this out, not in like the bad way. Very close, harsh game, low score in that case. But he did pull it out with a 47-point win. Just the ability of shooting, ignoring overwatches, making contact with you, being really fast, effective small arms fire into you. That's good. Kind of seems like it would be not easy, but easier than some other version of Orc list to try to pull Richard's list apart in this case. And kill some of these smaller units on kind of their terms. So very, very nice that he was able to kind of pull this one actually through against the Ducati forces, because that would be, you know, one of those matchups where especially you're not really familiar with that style of army. You know, I haven't played them in their new codex at all yet right now. No one around you plays me any of them anymore. So that's when you get into that end round and you're like, oops, you know, now we have actually game knowledge that becomes a factor, not just your skill overall. So I'm just familiar with their overall sheets. They have plenty of stuff to kill us. Even typically small Eldar units you're not that worried about. In this case, you know, they're small arms, they're fighting, they're characters, they're even their transports have respectable small arms. So great job with that win right there. Love that. Love to see that overcoming a very unique style of matchup at the end. So a couple more things he said as well. Is that yes, Gaz absolutely kills one of the termies. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Then the other charges them and then he fights them in death. Yeah, he totally should not have done that, but I'm glad that the enemy did. Love to hear that. That's like best case scenario for Gaz, right? He just runs in there, takes out some veteran terminators, then another unit with character jumps on him, all crazy Space Wolf like. He takes them out, he takes some damage, gets taken back on the ship. Mad Doc appears out of nowhere, glues his head back on. All right, well, now we're good into a bigger body. So love to see it. Great job, Richard. Love to see that Orks finally came through with another GT win, 2 in the same weekend. So we have Beast Wasp with Cunning but Brutal. I bet Beast Wasp did well as well too, but he's kind of just like that cherry on top, right? Someone that can do stuff outside of the wall, gets the stuff kicked off, something like that Ballistic Dreadnought we seen earlier, kick that off the field hypothetically. So we have the Beast Boss, Cunning but Brutal, a Big Mac with Follow Me Lads, Big Mac with Shock Attack Gun, who Richard said sucked, a Boss Sinikra, Death Killer Wartrike with Super Cyborg Body, Richard loved it, Gazgul Thraka, a War Boss, Zagrot Wart Snagga, a 10-man unit of Snaggas, 20 boys, a 10-man unit of boys, 3 trucks, Burner Boys, 5-man unit of Burner Boys, 2 5-man units of Flesh Kits, 1 big brick of Gretchen, 2 minimum size unit of Gretchen, a unit of Mandos, and then the knobs. So shout out to this git and great job getting stuck in that. Whoa. So Orks finally showed up and came out on top. I love to see that, and we finally made it to where everybody's been kind of waiting for, right? You hear so much hype about how strong we are, all of our potential, yet the results weren't actually coming through and showing it. It's not that I didn't have faith in our community. I really did. It was just I was waiting to see why, what were we waiting for to really push through and end up on top to, end up winning GTs. It seems like Orks are just slowly tweaking and refining their list. As you can see, though, the core matrix of these two GT winning lists was WAAAGH plus Boys. Very, very different in how they supplemented support in this. Sorry, guys, pick up. In this, one had Zod, one had a bunch of flash kits inside, double wagons, just some trucks, very different styles, even though you would say they're a similar archetype. So that means regardless of where you're at or what you're doing as a git, keep getting stuck in and adjusting your list to suit your meta, because there's still a lot of stuff to be untangled and learned here as you get. Thank you for Richard for joining us, and great job out there getting us on the table, getting us on your menu, and showing that Zod and Gaz are really where it's at. So there's always one thing to keep in mind as you get, just don't cross the wall, because we'll not get the eval. Whoa.